What's up, everybody? I am back with a new James Bond review, and I'll be covering Quantum of Solace. Now, I completely forgot about this, but around this time when this movie came out, it was going through or just got out of the whole writer strike of that time, and it's kind of ironic because literally like a year or so ago we just went through another writer strike, so it's kind of like, it's been that long since we dealt with writer strikes. But yeah, and Quantum of Solace for a while has been considered like the low tier James Bond films. But I think over the years we got plenty of more James Bond, especially coming from the Daniel Craig version, that especially the last one, make Quantum of Solace look like Casino Royale. Now, I never was that bothered by Quantum of Solace. I thought it was like a fine film. Still did pretty well, mostly because it probably just came off of the heels of the hit that was Casino Royale. I have a few complaints about this, don't get me wrong, but by and large, it's still a fine enough film, So, it was directed by Mark Foster. Once again, Daniel Craig as James Bond. We have Olga Kurylenko as Camille Montez. Matthew Ulmerich as Dominic Green. We got Giancarlo Giamatti as Mathis. Gemma Arterton as Strawberry Fields, because like I love a Bond girl name. It's like there's here a couple of things here in terms of the Daniel Craig era. None of my biggest complaint, not enough punny names from the Bond girls, and second, lacking in the gadgets. I mean, we'll eventually get a gadget. I don't even want to even count it as like a typical Bond gadget, but it kind of like, in the next film they made like we meet a Q, at least this version of Q, and he made some reference about exploding pins, one of my personal favorite James Bond gadget. And it's like, oh, we don't go for that sort of thing anymore. Why the freak not? That's half the fun of the James Bond stuff. It's just he gets these cool gadgets that typically gets him out of jams. And it's just kind of lame, because this era of Bond, they try to make it a little more grounded. Like the Brosnan era wasn't grounded of its time, but it still catered to what made the Bond franchise so entertaining. He gets the cool gadgets that pertains to the particular missions he'll be dealing with, like the exploding pen or the wristwatch that has like a grappling hook or a laser to it, or a car with turrets or bulletproof shields, or like a retractable or changing license plates. He doesn't need to be Batman, but it's like he still needs to be James Bond. In this era of Bond, that's probably my two biggest complaints personally. We got Anatoly Toban as Elvis, Green's second in command. Jesper Christensen as Mr. White. We got David Harbour as CIA agent Greg Bean, which I didn't even remember he was in this. That's a like I won't say he was like a nothing burger of a character, but it's just like David Harbour wasn't David Harbour yet. He's still pretty much like a character actor until Stranger Things catapulted him to stardom. Uh, Rory Kinnear as Bill Tanner, and of course Jeffrey Wright as Felix Leiter, and Judi Dench as M. So this picks up right after the events of Casino Royale, after Bond shoots Mr. White, puts him in his car, and drives to meet with M at a location, like a secret location in what was that place called? Siena, Italy. After this pretty cool car chase, the sound effects is like pretty dope too. The way it's like focused on the gear shift changing and the tires screeching and all that stuff. That's pretty cool. Although I won't just raise it here because I'm probably not going to bring it up again. But one of my biggest complaints of this film is the cuts. The editing and the cuts are just too much in this film. It's not tonal whiplash, but you kind of want to focus on the one thing. Although it worked in one scene in the opera where the sounds focus on what's going on at the opera while we see bits and pieces of Bond running out of the theater, shooting down bad guys and stuff like that. It's like you don't hear what Bond is doing, but you see what Bond is doing. But you hear the opera music going on, and it's kind of like it interwoven perfectly here. And they would have just, the director would have just focused with the cuts with just this particular scene. It would have been like, in my opinion, would have like flowed so better. But by and large, it was too much when it comes to action scenes. There's so many cuts, is it was kind of annoying. Anyway, he takes Mr. White to the secret location so M could interrogate him, and clearly you see, like I said, it picks up right after Casino Royale. Bond is still bothered by the events, what happened with Vesper, and thinking that she didn't really love him and she might have betrayed him. But clearly, kudos to Daniel Craig's acting. Clearly, we know it bothers him, but he's trying to drown it in like booze and even though he's taking his license to kill, I won't say too far, but it's just when M wants somebody, she still wants him to act with some bit of discretion or with some not act like a blunt instrument, as you referenced in the first film. It's like, okay, think, okay, we need information. Probably best to keep this one alive so we can catch the bigger fish. So, as they're trying to interrogate Mr. White, he alludes to the fact that he's working for an organization, and turns out after he says like, "Hey, we got people everywhere," and one of the people who M thought she can trust turns out to secretly work for this unknown organization. Shoots one of the other guards. Tries to shoot at M. She eventually gets away. Shoots at Mr. White, but he ends up getting away. While Bond chases after the guy. Once again, the annoying edits between this racetrack. It doesn't really mean anything. It would be different if it kind of culminates in something. Because you would think if you cut to these horse race thing, you would think, oh, Bond's probably going to chase after him by get on one of these horses or something. That's what's leading to. No, it was just like in amount of nothing. Just you didn't have to cut to this. You could just see them running towards this place and Bond chasing after him. After fighting inside this abandoned place and through all this scaffolding, which, like I said, as I mentioned before, I love one of these grueling fights that isn't like, your kung fu movie or anything like that. Bond is capable. This is a grueling fight, like a real scrap, and he gets bruised and cut, and he comes out on top, like that as he's stuck on the rope, and he just grabs his gun and just, with pinpoint precision shoots. And you didn't have to cut to him actually seeing the guy die. You just know through the actor that he made his shot. That's all you needed to know. And it goes to show about a competent director and a competent writer trusting the audience to fill in the blanks. Most movies nowadays are kind of lazy like that and just want to hold your hand the whole time. Not all of them, but it's far more than it was back then. Anyway, M and Bond, goes through the fallen X, or I should say 00 agent, check his flat, and M is obviously perturbed because the fact that this guy, she trusted him for years, and did not know this guy has been secretly working for an unknown organization underneath her nose, and how many others are there. So they find some bills and end up some bills, but they locate this contact of this agent. Bond ends up going to, what was it, Haiti, and finds this contact, and a lot of people have been pointing this out for a long time, and I can't argue it, because this movie came not too long after one of the earliest Jason Bourne films, and one of the highlights, I'm pretty sure the first one of the highlights of the film was this fight scene with a knife in an apartment, and in this scene is pretty much a mirror image of that. I mean, some might argue it's a carbon copy, and I can't really argue it. There might be a few that might say it's more of an homage, but I don't know. There's a fine line between homage and a straight up ripoff, and this is kind of a ripoff. But anyway, he takes down the contact and takes this briefcase. As he walks down, he is greeted by this woman. Crap. I'm blanking on Ogo's name. Camille, who she assumes she's meeting with that same contact, even though don't know why she doesn't know what that guy looks like. But Bond hops into her car, and she thinks he's some kind of geologist. And as he opens the briefcase, he sees like a picture of her and a gun, and she tries to shoot him, but Bond, easily evades it and hop out of the car and chases after her. And she meets up with this tycoon named Dominic Green, who is one who ordered that contact, or probably Mr. White to order that contact to take out her, because he believes that she's been uh, uh, working against him. So Green meets up with this Bolivian dictator, helping him overthrow uh, his territories. So, in exchange to get some land, where the dictator believes that he just wants oil, even though he thinks there's no oil there. But Green, obviously, there's more to that land. It's obviously beyond just oil. Uh, so he has Camille go with the dictator. He wants the dictator to do what he wants with her, but promise to get rid of her afterwards. Uh, but Bond rescues her. It just kind of just leaves her in the hands of some boatmen, and it's like some guys by the docks. It's kind of like you don't even bother to leave her at the hospital. At least you don't know these guys. That part was weird. But then after talking with M and having them back at HQ investigate Dominic Green, gets information about him, and heads off to this opera where he'll be at, in Austria to see the performance of this opera Tosca, where Green is part of this organization called Quantum. He inserted devices for particular people to get in like gift bags as they're entering. So they speak in their earpieces during the opera, Mr. White being among them. But Bond managed to beat up one of the guests to take his quantum earpiece. As he's listening on their schemes, Bond gets a picture of all the attendees who are trying to leave after Bond kind of outed them. But Mr. White kind of knows what the jig is, and it's like, I'm going to go sit here. I'm not even going to react, because he's going to be kind of like one of the constants in terms of villains, one of the constants in these films up until Spectre. And Bond grabs a picture of all of them, sends it to HQ as they run their investigations on these guys. While Bond, hey Maddie, while Bond is running out, stopping some of Green's men, one of them he thinks is one of the henchmen, but turns out later on he's some kind of undercover agent for some other, like a special branch, counter-terrorism unit. For like London's police, it turns out. Yeah, I'm just looking up. It's actually a legit organization. And how you doing, Maddie? I'm doing alright. I'm just covering like a Bond film. So Bond tries to interrogate this guy, not realizing he's an undercover agent. Don't know why this guy didn't say anything. But of course, we know why Bond didn't say anything. He's like in his own head, and he's still like, not acting with, like some bit of discretion and like professionalism. He accidentally had the guy fall off the building. He lands on top of Green's car, but Green ends up killing that guy, which leads to M believing that Bond killed him. And why would she not think that if the guy, one of her guys, just goes around and doing, like going, what would be the word? 1 second here. While Bond is like off the leash, and even though she trusts him, it still like looks bad on her end when she can't seem to get her agent under control. But she ends up sending, after she cuts off his credit cards and passports, she ends up sending, and this is kind of dumb. It's probably the single most dumb part on M's side. She sends this hot redhead named Strawberry Fields, who turns out to be some kind of like an assistant, or works in some kind of office in MI6. She's not really like a true blue field agent, but like I don't know why we send a woman like this who to meet up with a guy who's in the field dealing with some serious stuff, and on top of that, she's hot. Why would you send a hot woman to go pick up and bring back Bond? A, you think for 2 seconds he's gonna listen to her. B, you don't think he's gonna sleep with her. C, you don't think that any girl you send would not want to sleep with him and fall for his charms. You're better off going yourself, or sending like a bunch of trusted. Well, you don't even know if you can trust anybody given the situation, but it's like you might as well have gone yourself and drag his ass back, because he ain't gonna listen to nobody else, and he dang sure ain't gonna listen to no hot woman after he bangs her brains out. Willing to, because like deal with any James Bond variant, any chick you send, he's gonna bang her, and she's gonna be down to clown. That was so dumb. What did she think was gonna happen? Of course, she ends up helping Bond after he gets the assistance of Mathis, who, after the events of the previous film, Bond thinking he has something to do with the whole situation with Lashif and the people he was working for. After it's kind of excuse me, he tipped off Lashif about his tail in order to get Bond to lose the card game, but it turns out at the end of the day he was innocent ish. So he pretty much like resigned himself into like some kind of retirement, but he had nobody else to trust, so he ended up going to Mathis, since he's the only one that kind of knows what's going on. He's more of a veteran than Bond is, and he needs to be able to get to certain places, and he has like resources that Bond can use. They all end up going to what was it? Bolivia. Where Green is having this party because he's under the guise of this big environmental philanthropist kind of thing. Mathis introduced. Oh, by the way, Green is end up also working with CIA because they, with Beam running point, they want, after he gets his little land, they, under the assumption that he's there, trying to acquire oil, and the CIA's, get in the bed with them in order to get a portion of that for themselves. And yes, CIA, the American military, every now and again they will probably end up doing stuff that we're not really privy to, and then on the surface will look very kind of shady and bad, but in the long run it's probably like something that stands to benefit the American people in the long run. Even though, like, you know what, I don't think it is a good idea for American people to know every little thing what the American government does, because at best half of it we would probably approve of, and the other half we're not going to be approve of. But it's the shady stuff they probably is more pertinent to do. They might I want to say not all. Like I said, I'm not like blind to the fact that America had done some crap stuff in the past, but there's going to be some things that, like, they might be blacked out on certain records or what have you. There's going to be certain things that they're going to have to do that might be messed up in order to serve the greater good. And that's what you see with something like Bean doing here. One second. And that's where Green ends up finding out, because Beeman was spilling the beans about who Bond truly is, which is like a British secret agent. So now Green really is gunning for Bond. After Mathis introduces Bond to a Bolivian soldier that he knows, Bond sees Camille, who just pops up, and this is kind of stupid of her, knowing this guy is trying to kill her. She just pops up, act all nonchalant, like she's gonna actually do something, because she thinks she's just so capable, and the whole entire thing is dumb. But she needs to get close to Green because she needs to get close to that general that he's working with, because that general turns out to be responsible for the death of her family, and burn down their house in the while he was in the throes of overturning the government. That's why he's a self-appointed Bolivian leader kind of thing. Bond ends up helping her to avoid Green killing her there, but as Bond gets pulled over, he sees the beaten body of Mathis, who was betrayed by that officer he supposedly thought was his friend. The cops, obviously corrupt, tries to take out Bond. They end up killing Mathis, but Bond kills them. Mathis, in his dying breath, tells Bond to forgive Vesper, forgive himself, because Mathis, fully aware, with his wisdom, sees that Bond is hurting. He's saying, like, look, you don't know, she did truly love you. She traded her life for yours. You need to find a way to forgive her and forgive yourself, because you clearly blame yourself for her death. So, and I love this moment where you see, like, Bond is human. Like, people who, don't think too highly of James Bond only think of him on like a surface level, run-of-the-mill action hero, whereas he's more a layered character than you give him credit for, especially when it comes to, well, I won't even say with Bond or even Brosnan, even something like Sean Connery or Timothy Dalton's version of Bond, there's moments of humanity. If he's just some monotone action hero dullard, he wouldn't be quipping as he does. He wouldn't be as witty as he is. He wouldn't be as charming as he is. He wouldn't be as skilled as he is. There's a level of humanity to James Bond, and you see it clearly right here as he's holding his dear. Consider, even through all this stuff from Casino Royale up to now, he considers him like a good friend, and he doesn't want to leave his friend alone to die. So it's like he sits there with his friend until he passes. But it still adds more fuel to Bond's fire as him and Camille go find a plane, and they end up going to this location where the Bolivians, are struggling for water, and the director and the writers actually pulled out some real world stuff that was going on at that time. I wouldn't say at that time; it was like more so in the 90s and early 2000s, where the Bolivian crisis was actually going through like a major drought, and they actually made some kind of movie about it. One second. So it's going to show you can add real world elements. We don't sit there and don't beat your audience over the head with it like nowadays, where they practically gotta give you some kind of long lecture about the stripes of like some oppressed demographic and tell you what to think and all this other stuff. The director didn't forget who his target audience is, and don't get lost in the weeds about political politics and stuff. Political politics, like some kind of like the politics of it all when it comes to Bolivia and stuff. So Green ends up sending goons to try to shoot down their plane, but Bond, maneuvers and gets them to pretty much take themselves out, while him and Camille parachute out, and people often comment the way they landed should have still kind of killed them despite the parachute being deployed. Which, yeah, I kind of agree, but at the same time, at the bare minimum, they should have had like a couple of broken bones or something. And that's where Camille tells her life story to Bond. They end up finding out that this area, Green isn't looking for oil. He's pretty much damming the cave areas to wall off the water source that's there, so that way he can monopolize it and overprice the water from the Bolivians, make him even more rich. Bond and Camille make their way back to the hotel, where Bond meets up with M, and she shows him the body of Strawberry Fields that Green ends up killing, drowning in oil, which is, a good reference to Goldfinger when he kills one of the girls and paints her body in gold, and she suffocates through like suffocation. So it's a nice little callback here, even like the way the body's position is very reminiscent of the same thing. This looks a lot more gruesome given the updated cameras and other tech that we're using now by comparison what was used during Goldfinger. While they try to, bring in Bond escapes, tells M to like make sure this woman, you mentioned in the report she died bravely, trying to make sure her death isn't just a footnote. She, has some kind of honors to her name as she died for her country and stuff like that. So, she has some kind of respect in her life. Which I thought, once again, shows that this dude's not some just, he's not no some misogynist robot action, dude. He cares. If you pay close attention, Bond actually cared for this girl. Despite the short little moment he had with her, he treated her with just because he banged her doesn't mean he didn't treat her, didn't have any modicum of respect for her as a human being. He made sure that, okay, she died on my watch. I'm not going to let her just be some kind of footnote. I want to give her at least her death some freaking meaning, and I want to get back at this dude for doing what she did. Nice little comeuppance. He didn't forget. He gave Green some comeuppance for what he did to her, which I thought nice touch. Because I love when Bond gives a proper comeuppance to the bad guy. Bond leaves with Camille after he meets up with Felix Leiter, who gives Bond like a good 30 seconds before the CIA goons come crash in to try to arrest him, because now Bond is kind of wanted at this point, because everybody, these certain governments think he's gone rogue or something. It's technically he is, but he's not a traitor. Felix, considered Bond a friend, tells him where Green was being held up, which is some kind of like a hotel in the middle of the desert. Don't know why there's no security there. But after escaping the clutches of CIA agents, which is a cool shot, Bond takes Camille so they can get their revenge on the guys that, took somebody who they care for. Camille obviously goes after that dictator who, in the fight, because I love this realism when it comes to female fights. You don't forget that women are half the size of men on average. They don't. Some of them lack, or at least most of them lack the physical capabilities to take on a guy twice or three times their size. So they have to think outside of the box or fight very brutally, unfairly as possible, like she has, where she's just sticking knives and other objects, whatever she has to do to like really get at the vital parts, knowing that she is not going to be able to get him in a fair fight. So I appreciate that. So the fight with her and that dictator, I buy it, because she's not throwing this dude who's twice her size around like she's freaking Captain America. Bond takes out that officer who turns out to be working for Green, who's working for obviously Spectre. He takes out that officer. He goes after Green. The place is going up in flames. As the place is going up in smoke, Camille takes out the dictator. She's kind of going through some PTSD because everything's going up in flames, and that's how her family died. Bond helps her out. They manage to escape. Bond takes one of the nearby cars, chases after Green as he's running through the desert. After, kind of wish we get to see this, but he interrogates green about who he's working for, and he leaves him out in the middle of the desert with a can of oil, and it's like, I'd say you got about 20 miles before you consider drinking that. So Bond drops off Camille, who finally avenged her family's death. They share a kiss, but it's one of those kind of like spur of the moment kind of things, but it's no true romance between them, which is very unique in Bond films, where, yeah, you gotta have like some kind of bit of, thing with Bond and a couple of the women in the film. But in this one, I think people by and large would have been perfectly okay with just platonic relationship. It's kind of like with the first Blade film, where the lady in that film, him and Blade never hooked up. It was just completely platonic, a work associates essentially, and that's it. Most people didn't really think about it. Most people don't really care because everything else is so good. Then we see Bond confronting Vesper's supposedly dead ex-lover, who turns out to be some kind of I'm pretty sure like a British agent. What was it? What's this guy? And then Yusuf. It turns out to be working for Quantum. His job is seducing female agents. Pretty much like a honeypot kind of situation. Seducing agents to get information. And he, seduced Vesper a little while before she ever met Bond. And she was under the impression that they was actually like, a legit couple. And his MO is convincing these girls that, he ends up getting kidnapped and like get these girls to trade certain information or money in order to liberate the lover. He was in the middle of trying to do that with his Canadian intelligence agent, but Bond tells her, like, you gotta get out of here, and this dude's no good. Bond ends up arresting the guy, and he tells M that she was right about Vesper, and the title of the movie is kind of like a double meaning to it. Sure, it's the title of this organization, but by the end, Bond learns he got to find some quantum of solace throughout what he does for a living and what he'll end up going through. It's Bond just learning as he's going through these adventures, and we're right along with him. Unlike other Bonds, we're just in the thick of his career that he's been probably doing it for X amount of years. So that's where the movie ends. He ends up forgiving himself and Vesper, truly this time. So now, yeah, this is a fine film. Now, some might still not care for it after all these years, but there's been nuances, to it. Now we got the benefit of time on our side and retrospection, but yeah, that was Quantum of Solace. Like I said, it still did pretty well despite the criticism of the time. It had like a budget of $200 to $230 million, but it raked in the box office like nearly $590 million. So did still did pretty well. But anyway, the next film I'll be reviewing is Skyfall, one of my personal favorite. It's up there with my personal favorite Bond films. Yeah, and it's the funnest one out of the Daniel Craig. Like this and Casino Royale is probably, like, in my personal opinion, like the funnest Daniel Craig Bond films. But leave a comment below if you're watching this on YouTube. Let me know what you guys think of Quantum of Solace. Have you seen it recently? Let me know your thoughts on it after all these years, because I'm pretty sure it's been a while. But leave a like and share this with your friends, and I will see you all in a little bit. Peace.